Howdy, howdy. Welcome on into not the pre-show before the free show. Welcome on into Republic of Football Live. How freaking cool is this? Shehan,
It's pretty freaking cool.
on your last episode with us.
I know you guys waited right until the last second to set
We
all
really
of
did.
it up.
We really
And
did.
then we were like, okay, now that Shehan's out, we can get a real host for this thing. We can.
That
do
was
this
kind of our
right.
plan. You
Yeah,
know that, right?
yeah.
That was
No, I know.
that was kind of our plan.
I should have known whenever they brought Mallory in. My days were numbered.
Hey, you wanted a producer. You're the one that's leaving. You
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
that's who I get as my
I
producer
made one
is
demand.
Mallory.
I gave one demand. They fulfilled it, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm leaving anyway. Well, welcome everybody to the Republic of Football, as always presented by North Texas Honda Dealers. I'm Shehan Jeyarajah for one more piece of content at TexasFootball.com, the college football insider at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. If you have not heard the news, today is my last day as a member of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football staff. Over here, as always, we got Ishmael Johnson. Ish, how you doing?
What's up, man? I thought I dressed up well. Once again, you had to take it up another notch. I know if anybody missed Texas football today,
Yeah.
this is a long-standing bet that Shehan actually lost 2 years ago, I
Yeah,
believe now.
it was 2 seasons ago.
2 seasons ago now.
Which, by the way, because it's a white vest, I just look like I'm wearing bright whites.
That's true. Yeah, you can't really tell that it's like a two-piece tux and everything like that. And so, anyway, he came in last day. Of course, it was going to be the day that he fulfills the bet, which is
So
credit to him.
Yeah, just to be clear, so there was a fantasy football bet.
Yes.
2 seasons ago, I lost. I got last place, and as part of being last place, this is the deal.
Yeah.
I got to dress up in a tux.
Yep.
It was supposed to happen more than a year ago,
Right.
but here we are.
It got done.
It got done.
And so I came in today and I was like, man, I forgot it. So honestly, I forgot about the bet completely.
That was my
And I
hope
was
with
just like,
everyone.
Oh, yeah, I know, right. And I was like, oh, he's just going all out for his final day. And I was like, and then you mentioned the bet. And I was like, oh, wow, you're really feeling that. Congratulations.
And can I mention, his mom made that.
It's
Yeah.
true.
That is so cool.
You
I
can't
need
really
to.
see the detail. We'll post.
The
you can see a
detail is
little bit.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll post a photo a little later on the Dave Campbell Sex Football Twitter account. But and I also have a coat. I wasn't feeling like wearing it.
Yeah.
Honestly, they got me some lunch for my last day, and this is a very uncomfortable outfit to be full in. And so
Tell them what we had.
yeah. Oh yeah, we had barbecue. We did have
course.
barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
It was real
So
good.
good.
It was real good. So yeah. Anyway. So for this last episode, this is episode 151, by the way. It would have been kind of cooler to leave on 150, but
Yeah.
we didn't really signify it. And I believe David Ubben did 11 episodes.
I
So
think
for
so,
for 140 episodes,
Yeah.
you have to listen to this. And for people who are real ones, who were here for the first season that I was here, I did these alone a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that we're in a much better place with the podcast now. And by the way, so the way that we're going to format this episode, it's going to be very casual. We're going to do it as an AMA, okay? This is your last chance to ask me any questions about Texas college football, about me, anything in general. I'm happy to answer anything except for I cannot answer where I'm going to be working starting next Monday. That's
Don't
the
ask.
only question that's off. That's whatever, off limits.
Mhm.
But yeah. It's happening.
It's happening, man.
It's happening.
And it couldn't have been better timing, right before the season starts.
I know.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Well, first of all, Todd Gleaton, thank you so much. I appreciate the nice words. Says, oh man, so it's true. Gonna miss Shehan. Corey says, I'm not asking you for fantasy draft help.
Yeah, don't. I want to go back and see your team.
It
That-
probably
that
was
got
bad luck.
last.
I think it was bad luck.
I think it was like I think he had some injuries and things like that. I can't remember.
It's a bad feeling when
I do
you
remember.
go in.
I do remember it was like midway through the season. It was like, ooh,
Yeah.
you're finishing last. Like it was
Yeah,
it got really
yeah.
obvious at one point. So
Well, so the thing is, right, because back when I was at the school newspaper, we had a March Madness pool. And there's some randomness, all that, but I'm like the guy who watches college sports.
Sure,
Like really
sure.
watches college sports. And what ended up happening was we all put in our bracket, all that sort of stuff, and I got last place. Even though I was the only one who watched college sports. And at that point, I'm just like, this is not real. None of this is real. I don't care anymore. I just whatever. Yeah, it's a cold world. It's and you know what? I have to live with that.
Yeah.
As long as the check's still clear, I can live with it.
As long as the check's still
As
clear, I
long
like
as
it.
the check's still clear. Well, we got a question from Scott Whitley, starter for UT, Carter Thompson. This one's interesting. So I think heading into camp, I would have said Casey Thompson.
I thought so too.
He had the experience. He's a third-year player in the program, maybe even fourth-year player in the program. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Obviously had a great Alamo Bowl performance, but from the sounds of it, Hudson Card has really come on.
Yeah, I saw the article today from Chip Brown saying like all things are pointing Hudson Card's direction.
Right. Now, neither of them really surprised me. I do think that this offense,
he's entering his fourth year.
His fourth year.
Thompson.
So I do think in this offense, Hudson Card is a perfect fit. We saw all the pieces at Lake Travis. And this is going to be a similar type offense to that. A lot of stand and deliver type stuff. And he's going to be playing behind a good offensive line, which helps. The receiver talent, that might be a little bit of a question mark. But the one thing that you say about starting Hudson Card, it's kind of similar to starting Sam Ellinger a couple years ago. You maybe get 4 years of this.
Sure.
And now maybe you get less because of the NFL draft, which would be a tremendous blessing. That is not a bad place to be, but I do think that I do think that there is some benefit to saying this is my guy. We're going forward with it. The flip side of that is if you're Malik Murphy, the 2022 kid, if you're a 2023, 2024 kid, that maybe changes the way that you look at this situation.
Right.
And obviously, the thing that hangs over all this, I do think Casey Thompson would stay, at least for this season, but if you end up in a situation where Casey Thompson leaves after the season, you're talking about a true freshman coming in, and then Charles Wright, who is a good player but is a project.
Sure.
So that is the flip side of it. I mean, there's no good answers when you're recruiting quarterbacks in the year 2021, but that's probably the best bad answer.
Yeah, I think so. I think that when you look at somebody like Hudson Card, I think you see a kind of all kind of tools guy, right? He has the athleticism, he has the arm, he has a lot of the mental aspects. I think a lot of people who saw him at Lake Travis kind of saw the offense that they had at the time didn't really maximize a lot of his strengths.
Sure.
Because this is a kid who was playing wide receiver before he stepped behind center and is that athletic, and you never really saw that. And I think that Sark has had the chance to really get a picture of that. And I think that that's something that he will be able to unleash. And, obviously with the RPOs and those kind of things, like that's something and obviously Thompson can obviously move too, but Card is kind of that. He probably could have been a wide receiver somewhere if he wanted to in college. So I think Card is that next level athlete that kind of takes this RPO offense to another level.
Definitely. Well, moving on to a question that I got on Twitter from Todd Gleaton, and then we'll get to Todd's question on Facebook as well. Appreciate you asking a bunch of questions. What has been the most memorable, crazy event since working for Dave Campbell Sex Football?
Ooh.
This is a good question.
It is. I have a couple different directions that I'm going to go with this. So one, in terms of like one of the cooler experiences, it's always putting together the cover. That's always one of my favorite things. We got to put together 2 football covers and 1 basketball cover during my time here because, there was a pandemic or something. But the first one was with Sam Ellinger. We got to go down to Texas. They let us in everywhere. They let us onto the field. And Sam is just such an interesting dude.
Yeah.
I think that even since then, because he was going into his junior year when we put him on the cover.
Yes.
I think in the years since and the way that he's handled all that life has had to throw at him, I mean, I think that I've grown an extra appreciation for just how steady he is. That's a big part of it because you saw him do that, and it's easy to do that when you're on top of the world.
Sure.
Right.
But when he kind of did have struggles, and obviously now even with the Colts, I think he's winning over a lot of NFL people. You kind of see that personality. And the other football cover, obviously the basketball cover with Lauren Cox was awesome too.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun getting to bring out the trophy.
I was gonna say like, so one of my favorite. I don't know if you were gonna say one of your kind of funnier moments was I was there for it. It was when, and I think we can say it now because Kim Mulkey's gone.
Yeah.
So we were shooting we were at Baylor to do the photo shoot with Lauren Cox, and we were walking through. I think we were going to the media room. I think we were crossing through the weight room from the entrance, and we were going to like the media room to do the main photo shoot. And And like Kim Mulkey's like doing some light workouts. She's on the phone. She's I assume like with a parent or something like that.
Sure.
And so she's on the phone doing some elliptical workout or something. And then she just looks out of the corner of her eye. She's Shehan and just does a 180 and heads back. One motion. She's like,
I do not
ooh,
wanna
not
talk.
this guy. Like just
So-
like bolts the other direction. Obviously, because Shehan went to Baylor and she recognized Shehan very much, and so
Yeah.
she was definitely like not in a media mode right there. She was like, nope, I'm going the other way.
Well, and talking to people who cover the team and people around the program, like Kim does not like granting interviews, and one
Oh,
of
yeah.
the things about all this was that it was no guarantee
Yeah.
that Kim was going to talk to me for that cover story.
Right? Yeah, sure.
She did end up doing it. She tends to do it more for players than for herself. She doesn't like, doing
Yeah.
things just for that.
Yeah.
And she actually was very gracious, and I actually was able to get interviews every year that we did the preview for the magazine. So she's been very good to us. But yeah, I mean, Kim is one of the things that she loved about Waco and about Baylor was that nobody could make her do anything.
Right.
She was going to do exactly what she wanted to
And
do.
to be clear, we didn't need to talk to her that day. We were just doing the photo
But
shoot
she
with
was
Lauren
like,
Cox, but she
not
was
doing
like,
it.
not doing it. No,
not
I don't
happening.
care.
Not
Don't
happening.
ask me. And so that was one of my favorite moments because it was just like, hey, is that Kim? Oh, there she goes. Okay.
and the one other memory that I'll mention real quick is just there is nothing quite like doing state coverage.
Oh my gosh.
That
yeah.
is a grind.
Yeah.
And
It is.
It's a blitz.
oh my gosh. And so I typically and I'll talk my first year because the second year I did state coverage was remote. But when you're there, because I was doing like the sidebar stories, right? So it's more of like a small feature that you do after every game. And the first day is real easy because you're like, oh okay, that's no big deal. It's just the 6-man games. There's like an hour in between the games because they wrap up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you get to like 3A4 and it's like, ooh, there's like 10 minutes in between the games. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm running down to get interviews. And by the time I get back up, the other game's already started sort of thing, right?
It's crazy.
And it's because I've covered long events, I've covered busy events, I've had to write super on deadline before, but it is just the mental toll it takes on you being there for 3 or 4 days.
At the end of the day, that
Oh my
final
gosh.
game, you finally hit send, and you're like, all right.
Right.
My immune system probably didn't recover for like a month after
It
that.
was a
just
lot.
after all that focus.
Now, I was there this year, of course.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
as an intern, this is my first year covering state, and it wasn't as bad because we could break them up in between, 6-man through 4A, and then
Right.
we had a month break, and then we had 5 and 6A.
Right.
So I haven't gotten to experience the all-in-one-day kind of thing yet,
You'll see.
but I will see it.
We'll see.
I'm excited, though.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's go to a question from my guy, JD Moore, one of my good friends. Shehan, longtime fan since even before the days of your undercover cricket writer phase. That's an inside joke. Proud of your work and what you've done. I mean,
Or like what? What?
the inside joke of it is basically, obviously, when you look like me and have a name like me,
Sure.
a lot of people just jump straight to like, you should be covering cricket instead.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I don't know what to do about that. But anyway, so then when you look back at your time at DCTF, what do you feel is the most meaningful, non-hard news story you've written? And I think the answer for me is my story on Luke Laufenberg.
I was gonna say
over
yeah,
at
Wolfenberg.
UTEP. So for people who don't know, Babe Laufenberg, I think is a name that's very familiar to people in high school football and college football. The radio analyst for the Dallas Cowboys, and his son. I actually remember back. This is kind of funny. I think it was back in 2016. My friend, for a short while, was covering A&M recruiting, and he actually wrote a story on Luke Laufenberg. I think he started out as a walk-on at Texas A&M.
Okay.
And so I remember him writing that story. That was one of the first stories he did. And so Luke was later diagnosed with cancer. I can't remember what kind of cancer it was. But, he ended up beating it and came and fought back and actually ended up going to junior college and ended up getting a scholarship spot on the UTEP football team as a tight end. Just an incredible story. And unfortunately, his cancer returned before he ever got to play a game.
Gosh.
And it was really gratifying to me. First of all, I haven't done a lot of stories like that. It's really hard. I mean, it's something that I feel like, because I feel it so much, it can be really difficult for me. And also, when you're dealing with the story of a player who passed, you just want to get it right.
Right.
It is physically stressful because you want to do right by the family and by the player. And it's been gratifying to me. First, I think that I figured out an angle that worked, and you can read it up on textfootball.com. It was back in 2019, I think. And the thing that I think has been gratifying to me is that I think that talking to people who know Luke and knew Luke, they feel like it captured him. A lot of the stories that were written about Luke were about kind of the aftermath.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I tried to not make it about that.
Sure.
It is all addressed, right? But what I wanted to talk about more was I wanted to talk about who Luke was, because people at UTEP still talk about him. He was only there like 2 months. They have awards named after him and stuff like that. Like, that's how significant he was to that community. And so I think for me, I feel like I did a decent job of capturing who Luke was, what his legacy has been, and there's no easy way or positive way to write about somebody dying at 21.
Sure.
Right.
But I think that I was able to provide a little bit of peace to the family, and I think that I was able to. I think that it was clear how much this meant to people,
Mhm.
and that was really cool for me. On a completely different kind of note, another story that I really liked was my SMU Dallas campaign story, where I wrote about, and I'm not the only one who's written about this, but
I'd say you were one of the first ones that really caught on to what they were doing.
right,
Because it was like we noticed in the office. It was like, hey, do you notice
Right.
so and so has a billboard out there, and
Right.
so and so has a
No,
billboard
we
in
just
South
saw
Oak
'em.
Cliff, and
Yeah.
we just started. And so like, I remember that was very early in that phase of Sunny Dykes, so we were like, oh, is this kind of something
Yeah.
that they're really going for? So
Sure. No, and I think that, because I know the Morning News did a story on how the Dallas jerseys happened, but I think that I was one of the first to really capture it,
Mhm.
right? Capture that it's not just about cool jerseys.
Sure.
It's not just even about generic Dallas branding. Like, it's about trying to do things the right way in the context of the city of Dallas, all that sort of stuff. I think it's gonna be. I think it turned out really good. I will say it won a National Journalism Award, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. It was actually really crazy to me. I mean, that's one of those moments, right? Because it was like, Ubben won, who obviously was at the Athletic, now covers national college football for them. He was one of the people honored, and then it's like ESPN, SI. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, these are big names who also won that similar award. So
Right.
that was a cool moment for me. Let me go back to Todd's other question. As a Baylor fan and the Big 12 shakeup, how worried should we be about their athletic future? It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
big question.
Loaded
So-
question.
So here's my response. I think that for me, I take a step back. And as you guys know, I went to Baylor. And most of my friends are still Baylor fans, all that sort of stuff. So let's think about where Baylor is right now. They are a very competitive football program.
Mhm.
They are a nationally competitive basketball program. They have great other sports. And so let's just think of it from a worst case scenario. Let's say that they drop to some version of the AAC.
Mhm.
I don't think that it has to change everything. I feel like, because here's the thing. I know that there's all the talk about, like, well, what does the loss of that money do? And it's significant. You have to restructure a lot of things. A lot of coaches are going to have to be paid less.
Sure.
That's 100% true. But, like, Cincinnati's figured it out.
I was gonna say like
UCF has figured it out.
I was gonna say, like, there's all this talk about, well, what happens with the rest of the Big 12 now that this alliance has formed and things like that with the Pac-12, and it's like, oh, what these schools getting left out, what's it mean for them? And like, I don't understand, like, what is the worst case scenario about getting, quote unquote dropped to the AAC, right? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
you'd be with programs that, like Baylor,
Yeah.
have solid football programs, prominent basketball programs, very
Yeah.
good other sports as well. And so, like, I don't that compared to is like, I don't know, is it really that big of a boost to be like, we have to get in with with Oregon and blank and
Right.
blank and
Right.
possibly be, especially in football, possibly reach for the upper echelon, but maybe be knocked down the middle again, or
Yeah.
go to the AAC, be with programs who are just as fun to watch. I'd argue probably
Right.
more in terms of.
I have probably more fun.
I was about to say in
Yeah.
terms of UCF, SMU, those programs in football and basketball.
Sure.
I don't know, like. Yes, there money rights and things like that come into play and all that, but I just don't see this. I don't know. A lot of people are writing the obituaries of a lot of programs when this
Right.
alliance formed, and it was like, oh, there goes Tech and Baylor. It's like, I
Right.
don't see the negative of potentially going to the AAC if need be.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that the big thing, and the real frustration, is that Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, they have been rivals with Texas for a long time.
Sure.
And so I think that there's something to feeling like you are still a legitimate rival. Because the SMU TCU rivalry, it's been exciting these last couple of years. It hasn't really been like a close rivalry in a while.
Right.
And that's the frustration. I totally get that. But to me, the way to salvage that, because that's over, right? Even if you join the Pac-12, Texas is still going to be playing with a huge advantage, right? Like, that's probably over. So the way to salvage this to me is for these programs to still play each other and play other programs in the region. And because the thing that I keep coming back to is don't let the networks tell you that your football team isn't important.
Right.
That's the only way it can happen. I mean, obviously, you being a Texas State grad, I mean, does it make you feel anything less that it's like, oh, well, we're struggling? But it means it's even worse because at least, if we were struggling in the Big 12, I'd feel amazing.
Right. No.
Like,
Ask
you want your
Kansas
team to
how
win.
I was about to say, ask Kansas
Exactly.
how they
Ask
feel.
Kansas.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. There was like I get like for a lot of people, right? And I understand the frustrations when it comes to a lot of people who are a fan of like history, right?
Yeah.
And so like what I think has to happen next, and there are some people like you who have a very measured approach and kind of outlook for Baylor's history and Baylor's recent history.
Yeah.
What Texas basically did was our history is tied to A&M and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
If we're with them, we're okay,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why they're making that move to the SEC. The problem for the Techs, the Baylors, and the other programs are like a lot of their history are tied, of course, to each other,
Yeah.
but also to Texas,
Right.
right? And so when you look at the Southwest Conference, Texas leaves, Oklahoma leaves. Oh crap! There goes a big chunk of our history, right? And so now, and I think you're somebody who obviously went to Baylor and knows this. They have to establish a new identity and a new history, and they can do that by just sticking together, right?
Definitely.
Like if Baylor can play TCU and Tech, I think we'll be okay.
Right.
And like people like us who enjoy watching talent play talent that's, grew up together, played around each other.
Definitely.
Played around
That's a
the
huge
state,
part of it.
That'd be a huge part of it. And I think there's a benefit to that. And when you add SMU and Houston, okay, cool. Let's create a new thing. Like
Right.
you don't have to always hit your wagon to Texas and be like, where are you going? Because we need you here. Like,
Please, we need to be a less rich, like
Right. And
Like,
again, it's all network stuff that's mainly
Come on.
the catalyst for all
yeah,
of this.
come
but,
on.
Yeah.
You can read outlets like Dave Campbell's Tex Football that are going to tell you
Right.
your team matters just as much.
Right.
We cover UTEP as much as we cover Texas. Right?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, that's just part
Part
of
the
how
same
what we do.
pages in the magazine.
Right. So let's move on to a question. Real quick, I'll address something from Aaron Flynn. I joined late. What are your next plans, Shehan? So I can't announce until Monday, but I can say it's still in college football. I'll still be living here, so I will be in the state of Texas. I'll still live 15 minutes from the office or whatever. So I won't be disappearing by any means from all of this. I think I can sort of say my focus will probably be a little more national than it is right now. They can take my love for Group of Five football out of my cold dead hands. That's not going to change. Whether or not I'm actually able to write about it as much, that's not going to change. And I hope that sort of does help inform my perspective in my next job. But I can't say what it is right now. I will announce next Monday when I officially start the job. So it's exciting. I'm telling you, I would not have considered leaving Dave Campbell's for something that I didn't feel like was really a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been approached about other opportunities, and they're not as good, right? Like, I think this is the best football job in the state of Texas. So,
No doubt.
So that's what it would take for me to consider leaving. Okay, let's move on to this question from my friend Jared Kalmus on Twitter. Let's see. What's the best single game performance you saw in person while covering either Texas high school football or while covering Texas high school football for Dave Campbell's? And I'll also mention a college one.
Yes.
Okay.
Please do college.
So the first one that I'll mention in high school, I don't know if you. So Doug Brooks in the state title game.
Okay.
Doug Brooks in the state title game. And the thing that's amazing about it is that does not happen for a defensive line. Oh my gosh, it was insane. It was insane. And just so people know, I mean, I watch a little bit of high school football. I primarily only cover the state title games, so just for reference. But that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Scary.
He took over that game. That's just one of those where it's just like, you know what's gonna happen. I don't know. I don't know what we do now. We just have to play the rest of the game, I guess.
Right.
Like,
It's like you can't hand the ball off because he's going to stop you in the backfield. You can't tackle him because he's
do
like
anything.
50 pounds bigger than you and 4 feet bigger than you. Yeah, it looked. It was one of those like. It was one of those like you see like shows of like the kids like, is that kid of age like
I am
is that
12.
kid, yeah, right, it's a Benchwarmers I am 12 thing where it's just like, oh, here's this 26-year-old playing against a bunch of 14-year-olds. He has a mortgage and is just like destroying people.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it
so
was.
funny. And in terms of college ones, I mean, it's hard to think through all of them right now, but one that really comes to mind is one of the last games that I covered, which was Jalen Darden against UTEP. He was like, how many touchdowns do I need to get the all-time school record? Bet. Like,
That was
I think
awesome.
that he had 4 touchdowns in that game, and then after the game, he came into the press conference carrying a bag with 4 footballs on it and slapping it on the table.
He's
And
awesome.
He's so good, man. He is just. He was one of the best players that I covered during my time here. Other ones that come to mind. I mean, Reggie Robertson's first half before he got hurt against
geez,
Memphis,
I do
that
remember
was
that.
crazy. He went for like 243 in the first half, I think, against Memphis, which obviously that was a game that SMU lost the year before. So that was just ridiculous. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there are any power games. I mean, in terms of performances, obviously, like one of the best games I've ever been to was A&M LSU, the 7 overtime.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
that was,
Yeah, you went to that game?
oh yeah, I was on the
Oh,
sideline.
that's
Man.
pretty
It
cool.
was awesome. It was so dumb. The highest scoring college football game of all time. So much so that it broke the minds of people on the NCAA rules committee who were like, we can't let this happen again like it's ever happened before. We got to make sure that you got to go for 2 in the 3rd overtime because obviously that was terrible for the sport. And it's like, what are you talking about, man? That was one of the greatest things that I've ever watched.
Spawned a fight. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I know this wasn't during your time, but what about the Michigan State and Baylor game?
Oh,
I have to bring it up every
that's-
time I get. Every time I have to bring it up.
I don't believe that ever happened. I don't know.
If you, Ish
think I
knows.
played.
Ish can call your bluff. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. You know exactly what happened.
I don't know. I mean, look, listen. Baylor was very upset at being left out of the playoffs, so they didn't try their hardest.
Okay, okay.
That's my
That's your-
understanding of the situation.
I'll take it. Since it's your last day, I'll take it.
Okay. Justin Carter jumps in to say, what was your favorite college basketball game you covered that was not Baylor winning a national title? I didn't actually cover that game. I did go as a fan, but that was obviously crazy. I will go to the other Baylor game I covered before that, and that was Baylor, Kansas at the Farrell Center. That was when Baylor, I think they were number 1, and Kansas might have been 3 or something like that.
So.
And it came down to the last shot, like literally the last shot. Like there was a shot up at the buzzer that
Was
just
it
didn't-
2019?
2020.
Was it 2020? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it was right before the
That's right,
tournament.
that's
Yeah,
right,
it was
that's
right before the tournament. It was like February 13th, something like that. Yeah, so that was actually before the pandemic, the last live sporting event I went to, and I've been to a couple since then. But that was crazy, and that was like a heck of a game. And Baylor lost, but like, you know,
It was a good game.
64-61. Yeah, it was one of those.
so dumb.
Yeah.
So crazy. Oh, JD with another good question. What is the weirdest thing you have witnessed and can say on record while covering college football in Texas?
Ooh.
This is tough. I don't know.
I was about to say, we know a lot. I mean, we've talked obviously a lot about off the record stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Catch one of us outside the podcast on, at a bar or restaurant or something. We'll tell you some fun stuff. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to think of on the record.
No, we had some fun at coaching school with a sitting assistant coach.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's tough to figure out what I should and shouldn't say.
The 7 overtime was something weird that you witnessed.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
the crazy thing too was like having to watch Ed Orgeron on the sideline doused in Gatorade.
Right.
Remember, because they dumped
True,
Gatorade on
I
him
forgot
That
as
was
time
awesome.
expired.
Yeah.
And so he was like drenched. And
still
like,
having to coach?
and he had to coach 7 overtimes covered in Gatorade. And also the funny thing too is that like, because obviously he is a defensive lineman, right? Like that is Ed Orgeron. Whenever he called a timeout, because yeah, obviously the action was on the far side of the field, he would sprint all the way, like 50
That's a
yards
scary
every
sight.
time. Yeah,
Ed
no.
Orgeron sprinting is a
Right,
scary
and
sight.
it's like towards us. So I don't know if that again. There's a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't say. So I'm gonna keep it.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Is there any school you haven't gotten to see play in Texas? From Aaron. Out of the FBS schools, I have seen all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. So I've been to every stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a game at every stadium. I haven't seen a game at the Sun Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a game at the Alamo Dome, funnily enough. Just worked out that way. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but I think that might be it.
I think those are the only ones I'm trying to think because I'm trying to recall, and I feel like you've seen a game at every single
all the Power Fives: SMU, Houston, North Texas,
Texas
State, and Rice. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
The reason that I was
That's
able
cool.
to make it to a Rice game was because it was on the Friday before actually the Texas LSU game, the Joe Burrow
Oh yeah.
jump on the side game. Ooh,
Yeah.
that was a crazy performance too. See, this is the issue. I've covered too many good football games.
Yeah.
I think it was 2019 that I think it was Bill Connolly at ESPN put together his list of the top 50 games of the year, and like 4 in the top 10 were involved Texas teams. So I
Right.
was at like 3 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, man.
Yeah.
It does not get any better than that. Okay, let me try and find another one.
I have one for you while you
Okay,
wait.
yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned that wherever you're going to be working next, you're going to be staying at home, right?
Yes.
So does that mean, as the producer of Republic of Football, I can pull you for a show if you want to be a guest on there? Can I do that?
That does technically mean that, yes.
Yes,
No,
let's
it's-
get it.
Yeah, it will definitely be weird to be on the the
The
guest
guest.
line or something like that. But yeah, no, I'll still be around. I'll still
Awesome.
be available. Yeah, and that's the nice thing, right? I mean, nobody really has any rules or any sort of that thing about being a guest on a show. Lord knows I've been on some
Yeah.
interesting podcasts and radio shows in my day. So yeah, absolutely, I'll still be around.
Let's go.
All right, I'm going to kick it back up to Scott Whitley. Prediction, UT best case scenario and record. This one's interesting because the upside is there, right? The upside for UT is definitely there.
Sure.
And so if we were to say, let's just say, okay, Hudson Card's the guy. Their receivers, Xavier Worthy ends up being as good as we think he is. Troy O'Mary comes back from an injury, enters the starting lineup. Jordan Whittington, Joshua Moore, they have the guys. And defensively, let's just say it really works out. I mean, I don't know if they could beat out Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could probably. There's a world where they could beat out Iowa State for a trip to the Big 12 title game.
There's a world.
It's not a world I'm seeing.
Right.
I think that, looking at where we had them in the magazine, I mean, we have them around 7-8 wins, which is probably about where I see them. Just because I think it's going to be an adjustment process with so many new faces, losing Sam Ellinger, new head coach.
Yeah.
But the upside is, I think, 10 games. I think that 10 wins is reasonable. The flip side, again, that we mentioned is that 10 of their 12 games are going to be competitive.
Sure.
They're losable games.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you play Rice and you play Kansas, but then you play Louisiana and Arkansas in the non-conference slate, which is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the Big 12 should be pretty good. They'll be favored in plenty of the games, but there's no home runs other than Kansas. So that's the hard part.
I think that's also why they probably made the bet to go with Card, or indicating that they're going with Card, is because I think they feel like they got to get this right. Because this is, like you mentioned, this isn't obviously it's his first year. There's no make or break pressure, but the opportunity's there.
Right.
Right. Again, aside from 2 teams, you mentioned them, Oklahoma and Iowa State.
Right.
This is a fairly decent schedule for Texas.
Yeah.
And so I think that puts more pressure on getting the quarterback right, because then we've had questions about the wide receiver, but the quarterback that's put in place and kind of has the backing of the coaching staff can then work to whatever chemistry he can develop. And so, again, we have issues with the talent at the wide receiver right now, but if there's anything there, right, you want to develop a chemistry and a rapport with them and be able to buy the Red River, right? They'll have some type of production out of that unit.
Yeah. I'll jump to a question from Andrew McCleary on Twitter. What's the go-to order at Check Stop? How many and what types of delicious kolaches are you always going to get? Do you guys have an answer?
I've actually never been there before.
Really?
So
Okay.
I've never had any kind of food there, so I don't have an answer for you,
Mine was,
actually.
I think the jalapeno sausage.
Yeah.
Kolaches.
Yeah, so
That's something I'd probably get, too.
Yeah.
That sounds really
so
good.
I went to school at Baylor, like I mentioned, so lots of trips through I-35 that way and that way. To obviously stops it at Check Stop. So my answer, and it's probably a little weird to mix these things, but I would get the sausage and cheese kolache, just a regular one,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd also get a Nutella one. A
Oh.
Nutella.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So again, I mean, it's a lot of the time for me, it was late night stuff. So it's like, I don't care that I'm mixing these two things together in a meal. It doesn't. Before they had the Nutella, my order was the strawberry and cream cheese one.
Okay.
So that one's
Sounds
really
pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah. But obviously when they dropped in Nutella, it was like, oh no, no,
Game changer.
That is a game changer.
that's a game changer. And so yeah, and usually now whenever I drive back from Waco, and if I do stop at Check Stop, then I also pick one up for Barkavy because
Sure.
she's like, well, if you're there,
Right.
Might as well give me one.
yeah, might as well get me one too. So another question from JD: out of the 12 FBS head coaching positions in Texas, which is the most likely to open up again first? Whew, throwing some shots on my way out the door, I
Yeah.
see. I don't think it's any. Well, okay, there's the one Power 5 one that obviously you could see is Mount Wells.
Yes.
Now, I think they're going to be decent this year, but
Mhm.
there was pressure last year, and he didn't even really. Yeah, I thought he was fine last year.
Right.
So if there's already pressure last year, like that's how.
That might change.
Yeah, yeah. So
I'd say scenario. I guess the scenario I would pick to help, this line of thinking is if all these it's logistically impossible, but if all these programs hit their floor,
yes,
who's gone?
if they hit their floor, I mean, Tech obviously is a huge one. I think that if UTEP wins one or two games, that's a bad situation, right?
Right.
I mean, that's if they win
Yeah.
one or two games, they have to win.
I feel bad because I didn't even think about that. And
Yeah,
it's just like
they
I just
have to win
hadn't
4 or
thought.
5, I think,
Yeah.
to feel particularly good about it.
That's a good point.
The rest, I mean, I don't think Aranda's getting fired.
No.
I think a lot are kind of close-ish, but
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's quite.
Shout out to your boy Seth.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
it's
at.
probably- so we're probably a year away from Seth. We're probably a
Yeah.
year away from Spav. We're probably a year away from. I mean,
We're definitely a year away from Dana.
yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause there's too
Definitely
much
a year
money
away.
and too much hinging
Right.
on whatever he's building.
The one scenario is if Trailer gets poached. I think we're probably a year away from that too. But
Depends.
if he wins 10 games.
I was about to say, if he wins 10 games, he's probably getting poached
Right.
by but also he's also the type of coach where it's like
he probably needs to be in Texas.
I was about to say like
Yeah.
either Texas or like somewhere very
Oklahoma,
close.
Arkansas,
right, exactly.
Louisiana,
Like,
and there's not a ton of those great jobs
no,
potentially
so
opening up.
it could be another year before he takes the right job.
This is a slight tangent, but I feel like people are not giving Sonny Dykes enough respect on the coaching markets.
That's
like
fair.
I don't know if he'd do what he's doing here somewhere else, but I also feel like people are just kind of glossing over it.
I think so because for me, when a lot of these jobs opened up, like Ole Miss,
Yeah.
I thought Ole Miss would try to make a run at him, right? I thought Arkansas would try to make a run at him,
Right.
And I don't know if it's the Cal thing
I think it probably is.
or it's like, oh, he couldn't do, but
Right.
like that was such a weird marriage.
It's
like
not his
both
fault.
both parties are better off now that that's gone, right? Like
Yeah.
Wilcox is looking to be a pretty good head coach, and he's
Right.
obviously proven to be a good head coach. So like both parties are good, and it's not like they were bad either.
Yeah.
right. They produced Jared Goff. Like he
Right.
like he had that offense humming.
Right.
It just wasn't exactly what they were looking for, and like sometimes things don't work out like that.
Right. So guys, get in your questions. We're going to be going for a little bit longer here too. Again, you can ask me anything. It can be about football. It can be about not football. Again, the only question I won't answer is where I'm headed next.
Yes.
But yeah, any questions that you guys might think this is your last opportunity. I might not be able to answer all your questions after this.
He'll be back. Don't worry. That was a guess. He already said yes.
That's a guess. Another question from Aaron. How do you see UTSA ending up this year? Will they crack the top 25? So the one thing that I'll say that will probably preclude them from being a top 25 team is that their schedule is not very strong. Now, if they go 10-11, it might not matter.
Right.
They do play Illinois in week 1, so they will get some, I guess, comparison of like them versus a Power 5 team. And from that perspective, I think that could give them a little bit of credibility. And it could be like kind of like with North Texas a couple years ago when they beat Arkansas. Like Arkansas wasn't necessarily a great team, but it just got
Give
their,
him more credibility.
right. It got people's attention.
Got him on the map.
Right. And this is not, I don't think, going to be the worst Illinois team. I think that this is going to be an okay Illinois team. And especially if they play Nebraska relatively close in week 0, and then in week 1, if UTSA goes and does that, okay, I think that there's a case. now, all that said, again, I think that they'll probably be right on the edge. I think they'll probably receive votes by the end of the year. I don't know how the nation. Well, I do know how the nation sees Conference USA actually, and it's not good, right? So that's going to be, I think, the roadblock. But if you get to 9, 10, 11, and if Sincere McCormick looks like a first-team All-American, and if the defense is really rolling, and I think the big question for them is going to be quarterback play. If they can get a good enough passing game out of Frank Harris or Josh Adkins, whoever it is, that's the path. But, so 9, 10 wins competing for Conference USA, maybe winning Conference USA, all that's in the cards for them. And if you do that, you're going to have a shot to be ranked. It might not be enough, but you're going to have a shot.
Sure.
All right, you guys have any questions?
I asked you my question.
Yeah,
so
I don't know we're supposed to have questions for Shehan. That's interesting. See, I'm trying to think because it's like I could just ask you after the show. Like, no, if I have a question,
let's hear him now.
Like, I'm just like,
No,
whatever.
it's cut off as soon as the clock hits 4. I no longer work here. And I'm deleting your number. It's over.
Exactly. Okay, I've got one.
Okay.
Shehan, what's the first thing you're gonna do when you walk out this door, no longer an employee of Dave Campbell's Texas Football?
Change out of this outfit. that's the first.
No,
answer.
no. You look sharp. You gotta keep it. You gotta keep it on.
For how long?
Yeah, I know exactly. And I was gonna say, you could wear it to your first day of your new job, but you're gonna.
It's remote.
at home.
I could wear it to my first
Zoom,
day.
yeah.
I could wear it on Zoom. Would be very, very exciting. But I don't think I'm in a rush.
Oh, what's the most fun thing you've written?
Oh, that's a good one.
Fun thing that I've written.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There's obviously like things that you think maybe have been the best, but it was all that. But things that you were like, I can't. Like, I'm just having a really like you're writing it. Like everybody has those. Every writer has those moments, or every kind of content creator has those moments where you're just like, I just can't wait to push this out because I'm having fun writing this right now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go a couple different directions with this. So, one, I'm gonna do my embed with Tillman Fertitta.
That's a good one.
So. That was a lot of fun. That was my second year here. I think it was the first thing I wrote of the second season. I shadowed Tillman before the game of Oklahoma versus Houston. And they took me to the private airport. They had me sit in the SUV with them as they went to the game. Tillman walked in and was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that I was doing this." As soon as he walked into the car, he's like, "Who is this guy?" And the funny thing with Tillman, and I mean, this is a weird thing to say. I have met other billionaires before,
right?
But the thing about billionaires is that they are so direct to the point. They are so he just turned to me and was like, "Go," that's how this went. He was basically just ask me questions, don't waste my time, go, just do it.
Jeez.
And every time that I'd ask a question, because I was more expecting it to be kind of
casual,
and let me sit back and watch. Let me see how he interacts with fans. Let me see, all this sort of stuff. But it was so it was so all right, come on, that sort of thing. And I'm because that's not how I ask questions, right? It's not prompt answer. It is very conversational. And so that was great. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, just getting to his sons were really great, and I mean the people who helped out at University of Houston were fantastic, and so it was a lot of fun. And again, it was at Oklahoma too, so that was a crazy atmosphere. I went up after the pregame and covered the game after that. But I mean, that was one that was just a lot of fun. Another one that kind of comes to mind for me is I had a lot of fun writing about Bailey Zappi, just because and this was something that started a bit last year, but it just felt like we saw something and we just had this secret, guys. Did you see what that Houston Baptist quarterback is doing?
Right.
That's crazy stuff. And now obviously he's an FBS quarterback starting at Western Kentucky. But that was something, and I think it's always fun covering small college too, because they're so excited that you're covering them in some ways, especially as a state regional outlet. And so in a lot of ways, I think that getting to talk to Bailey Zappi, getting to write about Eric Morris has been something like that. No, I mean, that sort of stuff is just so much fun. And actually, the last one that I'll do is when I did the story on A&M Commerce and Midwestern State's game that lasted over 2 days.
That's right.
And because, everybody was just we went home and partied. We didn't realize that we were going to have to play tomorrow, that sort of thing. So that was a lot of fun just to have an opportunity to do that. Here's a good question from Lowell. FCS question. Is Coach Durrell on the hot seat at Abilene Christian?
Yes.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
This is a couple years ago. We'd be
right.
talking about him as one of the, oh man, they took a chance on a D2 guy who's had success, and it looked like things were turning around, and last year, man, they had and it doesn't help that the conference is getting better.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if this was the Southland or the WAC of a couple years ago. You know, like maybe this is maybe we're still talking about a 6-7 win ACU team.
Well, and that's the problem, right? And now they're joining the WAC.
Yeah.
And it's going to get harder.
Yep.
And Lamar's going to invest more than they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, this AQ7 deal this year for them,
nuts.
It is going to be a nightmare for Adam Durrell. And so, I think the thing that's still crazy to me, the thing that I'm still having trouble comprehending to some extent, is how quickly it fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a part where there's some COVID weirdness too, right?
Sure.
Maybe there's a bit of that. Maybe they're building up the roster in a better way than we got to see last year, but it also was kind of the year before that too. So I would say yes, if they go and really struggle and it's going to be a really tough schedule, yeah, they probably are going to have a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to have a hard time. The big question, obviously, if you're ACU is where do you go for a hire? There's lots of options, obviously. I mean, I think that you have to be innovative, especially because one of the things that I think is going to affect ACU most is I feel like Tarleton's going to be a really good FCS team.
Yeah.
It might not be right now,
Yeah.
but it in 2 years, I think that they could be a really good FCS team. They've got all the pieces. I think that they've got a great alumni base. They really own that town of Stephenville. They have a lot of access to DFW. Like, I think this is going to be something that has ripple effects across West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Texas Tech is going to lose a kid to ACU, but it's the sort of thing where like, oh, this kid who might have considered being a walk-on here, this kid who might have been our last scholarship player is going to consider going down a step. And I think it's just going to be really interesting because, Tarleton was a school that didn't have a lot of profile back when I was in school. I mean, it's not that far from where I grew up and where I went to school.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to really have an impact. Now, ACU has a great alumni base. They've got money to spend. They care. They care a lot. And Abilene does care a lot about ACU football. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a real interesting factor. Question from Rob Hadaway. Who at DCTF was most influential to you, and who are you going to miss the most?
This is a good one.
I hope you did not already cover this at the beginning, got on late. No, we did not cover anything like this. The one thing I hate about questions like this is now I feel like I'm going to slight somebody.
Yeah, it's like when Tepper asks all the interns on their exit interviews who's your favorite, and he just stares them down
But
like,
Brandon did
if you don't
answer
pick me,
Brandon
then
did answer me,
yeah,
so you know
Brandon-
what? I'm okay with the question then. But so I mean, again, this is weird for me to have to answer, especially since I'm in front of people. But I do think I'm gonna miss Ish a lot. It's been a lot of fun getting
Look
to.
at he's blushing.
We've been
single shot off me.
we've had desks right by each other, and I think that even in the last year or two, it's actually been a lot of fun to kind of realize that we have a lot of similar interests.
Right.
We are by no means the same person, but
Right.
but I think we have a lot in common, and it's been really fun getting to do this and kind of create a week-to-week unit of things. I mean,
We're stuck in a car for 5 hours together. That
was a dangerous decision by Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We had some thoughts, but no, it was a lot of fun. I was like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't sure how you were going to be as a car traveler, if you were just going to be like a headphone lock-in type.
Right,
like, that's kind of what I imagined, but we talked the whole way down.
Basically.
The way up, we were exhausted, so we didn't talk at all.
Right.
But
I fell asleep like 4 times on the way back up. So.
yeah, but no, I think that it's going to be, and seriously, everybody in the office, like, that's what I love the most about this job, right? Like, that's what has been the best part, and what was the hardest to leave. I mean, again, I've had other opportunities, and between what we were building here and the people, like, that was just something that was tough. And
right.
Again, it would have taken a lot to get me to leave, and it did.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I'd say in terms of people I'm gonna miss, obviously Ish is up there. Most influential, that's interesting. And the other thing too is I don't want to, like, because all you guys know the editorial people, right?
Sure.
That's a big thing too, and so I don't want to leave out, like, the sales staff, operations staff, all of them, because they do just such a great job. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a great answer for all these.
You can just say everybody.
The answer
and leave it at
is
that.
everybody. I will miss everybody.
Just to be
love
safe.
Everybody. I'm sure that's the very specific answer that Rob was.
Oh,
looking
yeah.
for.
Exactly. You're good.
Yeah. No, it's weird. It is. I mentioned this on the on TFT on the pre-show, but I've never, like, left a job that I really liked before. That a job that I could have, like, seen myself continuing to do,
Mm-hmm.
it's usually like, okay, I've reached the end of the line.
Next step.
Yeah, actually, this is a good question for all of us. Okay,
Mhm.
what other jobs have you had that aren't in sports media?
Oh. I was an RA.
Okay.
Ooh, good one.
And I've had, I guess, 3 jobs.
Okay.
I worked IT as an assistant for IT for Manor.
Really? Okay.
Summer after I graduated.
That's
Nice.
cool.
I was an RA for 3 years at Texas State, and I was I guess it was an internship, not really, but
Yeah, but
internship
I think
for
it
I
counts.
covered nonprofits and NGOs for my teacher's nonprofit media organization.
That's
Oh,
cool.
that's nice.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah. What about you, Mallory?
So I worked at the Texas Rangers Stadium,
Okay.
Globe Life Park, and I was an ice cream girl.
Oh.
So I scooped
okay.
ice cream for the sweets.
Okay.
Not bad. Mark Cuban gave me a $20 tip.
Nice.
So
Okay.
not a bad
Doing the
gig.
sweets, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. And then I also worked on the Texas Rangers golf course, the new golf course over in Arlington. So that was
Wow.
pretty fun.
Didn't
I
know
worked
they
in.
had a golf course.
What'd you say?
I didn't know they had a
she
golf
she learned about it from the people in the suites.
Oh.
Oh, that's exactly right. They were like, "Oh, did you hear about our very own new golf course that we're providing you guys?" Yeah, no, but yeah, that's about it. I worked in a couple restaurants, but like as a server and like
what
a
restaurants? Will
hostess.
we know them? Are they chains or are they like local stuff?
Popsitos.
Okay.
Popsitos is pretty good,
That's
right?
a solid one. That's solid.
Popsitos. I think that's it. I think that's all I've worked. I mean, I'm only 22, so just fresh out of college, haven't had much job opportunities yet. So this is my first time full job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and
So
it's pretty great.
So yeah, I mean, thankfully after like junior year of college, I was able to fully flip and kind of do media because people keep paying me to do it. I don't know. I won't complain. Again, as long as the checks keep clearing, I'm all good. But so my first job, which I had for like 2 years, was as a barista at a local coffee shop.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
did not know that.
cool.
Yeah. It was so you know the Valley Ranch Library, right?
Yes.
On MacArthur.
Yes.
There was a coffee shop that was like attached to it, so I worked there for 2
Oh,
years.
it was the first coffee shop that I went to when I moved to Dallas.
Yeah,
I can't
Java
remember.
Me Up.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
that's kind of cool.
That is great.
So I worked there for like 2 years.
Okay.
My brother actually worked there for like a year, and then my sister worked there for like 3 weeks. Because my
She's
parents.
like, "This is not for me."
yeah. And but yeah, that was. Man, I do not miss food service. I do
No.
not miss that one bit.
No,
And
not at all.
but let me think. The other things that I've done, I interned for a criminal court judge.
Ooh,
So that was again an unpaid internship, but that was real interesting to just see how all that works.
Yeah.
And obviously, it made me sad because criminal justice system.
Right.
And the other job that I've worked is I worked at the Gap for a summer.
The Gap.
So yeah,
I love that place.
It's been a while
Where
since
you
I
got your
shopped.
sick style from.
Well, the good news is that the employee discount also applied to Banana Republic,
Oh,
where I
okay.
actually bought my clothes.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that I didn't buy
Good
anything
hookup.
until like the week before because it was seasonal, it was over the summer.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't actually use it until like my last week basically.
Mm.
And then at that point I went to Banana Republic and bought like $300 worth of clothes. 'Cause it was like, I mean,
Might as well.
I think it was like 20% off. Like, I mean, it's pretty solid. Like, I don't know.
Nice.
So yeah, so those are my 3 jobs. And then yeah, obviously I've worked, actually, here's another one too. Wait, so Mallory, you didn't work at the student paper, right?
At UNT,
Yeah.
I worked there for 3 weeks. I actually wrote a couple of I wrote a couple of volleyball stories and stuff, but I got more into the TV side pretty
Okay,
quickly
sure,
when
sure.
I got to UNT. So
Okay, well, let me ask it like this then. What's the first sport that you covered as a student, or whether it's high
Okay.
school, college, whatever? Like, what was the first sport? What was, if you remember the first event even?
mine was UNT volleyball.
Okay.
So the first week of probably the second week when I got involved with NT Daily, I think I went to a volleyball game and I covered UNT volleyball, and they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it was a cool job right into college.
Did you know volleyball very well when you did it?
I played in
Sure.
junior high.
Yeah, yeah.
7th grade. I don't think that really counts, but I
No,
knew it.
I think it does. It means you know the rules.
Right,
at least.
right.
And scoring.
Exactly. I knew it pretty well. I definitely had to freshen up some knowledge
Yeah.
on the sport, but
Yeah.
I knew it pretty well, so it wasn't too hard.
Yeah.
Mine was, Oh, no, mine was JV, San Marcos High School football.
Really?
Yeah, because it was when I was a senior, and I was trying to intern at the San Marcos Record.
Sure.
And it was my first assignment. And he was like, the editor at the time was kind of like, hey, just go check out this. We'll see how you do. And it was the JV game, and then I covered the San Marcos High School volleyball game the next day. And that was that. Never heard back from him. Won't mention who the editor at the time was, but
T.
Ended up getting that job later on anyway. So
Yeah,
it didn't matter. So, and it wasn't Joe for anybody trying to figure that. Joe's great. Joe's my boss. Joe was not the editor at the time when I did not hear back from the record.
So my first sport that I covered was actually volleyball too. Now
cool.
I was able to do volleyball and help with football too, so it was kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'd covered 3 or 4 volleyball matches before I ever did a football game, and on the other hand, I had never played volleyball. I didn't know what the stats were. I didn't know how the rules worked. I didn't know anything.
What's a dig?
Yeah. All
And
these.
so one of the great things about covering non-football and basketball is that people are just happy for the coverage just in general, and I've heard the soccer's maybe a little more intense, but with volleyball, people are generally pretty happy-go-lucky sort of stuff, and they're willing to kind of tell you hey, here's what you need to be watching for, sort of thing, right? But yeah, I had to learn. I didn't know what a dig was. I didn't know what a kill was. I didn't know any of that
learn
stuff.
lingo.
I got a stat sheet, because that is the one thing. Okay, I just want people to understand how spoiled I am as a journalist. I have not covered an event. There's one. Yeah, actually, no. I have not covered an event that did not give me a stat sheet afterwards.
Yes.
Wow.
I've never, in any sport, had to keep my own stats.
Yep.
Never had to find my own results, anything like that.
If I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago when you covered your first state championship, were those the first high school games that you covered?
Yes.
I thought that was right. I thought that was right.
The one high school event that I'd covered before
Yes.
was the regional track meet in Waco,
Yeah.
which the morning news was
Huh.
can you help us out?
Yeah.
Because we obviously don't want to send somebody to Waco, Texas to cover track.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. If you pay me money, that's fine with me. And yeah, they post all the results at the end. Now, that was quite an experience though, because you've covered track
Yes,
before, right?
I hate it.
It's one of the worst sports to cover. And the thing that's confusing too, though it is helpful with the morning news, is that obviously they have a coverage area, and so that means that they. That means that you're looking for people who are part of that. And now part of that is trying to figure out is Naaman Forest part
Right,
of
right,
Yeah.
the morning news
Yep.
coverage, right? Because you're just really getting to the edges of stuff.
Yeah.
Is Alito part of it? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to figure out on the spot. But the good part about it was that the way that they had me write it was very find 5 things. Sort of
Interesting things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they almost had it structured into 5 sections basically.
That's better.
Yeah, and so I could just be oh, the Arlington Martin girls were really fast, or whatever it was. I don't remember who it was, but so
They
from
were really fast.
yeah, and so I was able to kind of just find and make sure that I had at least enough things without having to have the whole stat sheet sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, no, I should have been volleyball. Did not know anything. I probably still have my first interview from covering football on my phone, and it was a thing. It is. Once you get into the swing of it, it's not that hard. But just getting used to asking people things,
Right.
especially in in that kind of setting, right? Because it's it's one thing to do podcasts where it's just explain and you're just kind of conversational, but that's not really how press conference interviews work. It's something.
Right.
It took me a minute, but hey, you know what? I think that I figured it out okay.
You did. You did pretty well.
Well,
Is
everyone,
it time?
I think it might be time.
It may be time.
Thank you so much to everybody for joining us, not just now, but over the last 3 years. Thank you to every single person who's read any of my work, been a subscriber to Dave Campbell's Texas Football, engaged with my tweets, anything. Every single bit of it. I mean this, and none of this would be possible without y'all's support. And so thank you so much to every single one of you. I know and I'm confident that Dave Campbell's Texas Football is going to continue to have great college coverage. I think that we are pretty far along in trying to figure out what's next. So from that perspective, there hopefully shouldn't be too much of a layoff. I expect that there will be a Republic of Football next week. Hopefully the week after, you guys will have somebody else in there full time. Dave Campbell's Texas Football. I think what makes this brand so special is the way that they prioritize everyone top to bottom the same way.
Yes.
And that's something that I hope that I've left a little bit of a legacy with. That, if Sam Houston's the biggest story of the week, we're going to write about it. If Trinity's the biggest story of the week, we're going to write about it. If Texas is the biggest story of the week, we're going to write about it. And it's been great to see the way that you guys have engaged. It's great to see the way that you guys have become excited about it. Again, I would not have left if this was not a great opportunity, and it is. But that doesn't make it any easier to leave.
Right.
Ish, I'm gonna miss you.
Gonna miss you too, man.
Mallory, I'm gonna miss you.
We'll miss you, Shehan.
I don't know who else from the office is listening, but if you are listening,
They miss you too.
I will miss you guys a lot. Again, I'm just down the road. I'm still going to be very active on Twitter. You can still get in touch with me very easily. I will be able to announce on Monday. I don't know what time. They haven't told me anything. But I will be able to announce on Monday where my next destination is. But thank you all for reading. Still, even though I'm leaving, become a subscriber to Dave Campbell's Texas Football, texasfootball.com/subscribe. I know that now, since I don't know if I'll get a comp account anymore, I'll become a subscriber to Dave Campbell's Texas Football. And yeah, be well, and I'll see you guys around.